How's it, everybody? And welcome again to the 12 indicators in a market shift. We're going to be talking about that as we've been talking about it. If you missed the other sessions, just go back in the recording. And today we're going to be looking at inflation, talking about inflation. There are three of them we're talking about. Next thing is recession, very briefly. And then, of course, the jobs and wages, how that's really affecting us in our market right now. And understanding the indicators in a market shift right now. Fantastic. So let's get to it right now. And just remember, go back to the other ones if you haven't seen the other indicators, because we want to talk more about that. So inflation, let's just talk about that now. How's that's really affecting us in a big way? So remember, we briefly just touched on how inflation has increased significantly in the last few months, starting end of last year. Of course, because there was so much money being pumped into the system, and it's already started with COVID, and we had stay-at-home orders, and everything changed. So the government started pumping a lot of money into the system. So we didn't have a Great Depression, and we certainly didn't want to have a Great Recession like we had in 2008, 2009, 2010, going into 11. So we didn't want to do that because, it's often known that when America sneezes, the world gets flu. And what I mean by that is that America, United States, affects the world's economy. So there's kind of a leadership responsibility on our nation to make sure that we don't get into a depression, because the world will suffer, tremendously. So yes, we pumped a lot of money in the system, and yes, we didn't experience a Great Depression, which we could have easily when everything just stopped. So the government did decide to print more money, and this was supported by both political parties, and that's what happened. But there's always a price to pay for anything, and when you've got too much money floating around with too few goods, that's when we're going to have inflation. When there's too much money circulating and too few goods to buy. Why you couldn't buy? Because the ports were even closed at Long Beach. The ships were out there. We couldn't even get the products in, whether it's from China or wherever. The whole world really went through that, right, with the supply chain. So there's too much money and too few goods to be bought, and we're going to get inflation because prices will go up. Besides the oil prices and things like that, and that has, of course, been affected by the war in Ukraine, by Russia. As I mentioned, BMW, X5s, who produce in South Carolina for the world market, their windshields come from Russia. And of course, BMW decided they're not going to buy any windshields from Russia anymore because of what's happening. So we see all these different effects, and just about every industry has been affected by this. So, but inflation was because there was too much money running after too few goods. And we all experiencing it in our pockets, every single family, industries, no matter what, we experiencing that. You can't even buy an airline ticket for a reasonable price right now, right? So that's what we're all experiencing. So let's just understand why we're having inflation. Inflation can be a good thing, okay? It's not all bad, especially in developing countries. Now, the United States is not a developing country. There's certain markets that are developing in different industries, but it's certainly not totally a bad thing. Why? Because things were getting out of hand, okay? And we're going to see that. So San Diego inflation, right in San Diego, of course, has been about 8.2% this year, and depending, some industries a little bit higher than that, but that's what we're really sitting at, about 8.22%, which is significantly higher. If you look at from 1982, the graph 1982, and until now. So we've seen inflation go up a little bit, go down, but we've had the sharpest increase in inflation in many years, I guess, since the 80s. So just another little graph, an 18-month average retail price chart. Okay, the red one on top is San Diego, the San Diego market, and then the blue one is the USA average. Okay, so you see that San Diego is, for the price of gas especially, is a lot higher. We know that than the majority of the nation. We know that, but that's where we is. Why do we talk about the price of gas? Because that affects every single thing. If you think everything transported, when you buy something from Amazon, when you buy something from the grocery store, there's probably a diesel truck that's moved those products to you. If they arrive at your doorstep, they don't just arrive there through the air. There's been some transportation. And gas prices, and when I say gas price, I'm talking about diesel as well. Dieseline is affected and affects our whole life in every single way. We don't even realize. We didn't even realize it. So here's just another graph just to see where we are in terms of the inflation going up. A little, it actually came down slightly in April, but now it's gone back up in May and June again. So we see a bit of a dip in April from the previous month, but it's still climbing. It's still climbing. So rising inflation means home buyers will be looking for homes that are $40,000 cheaper. Now that's on average through United States. It's not just San Diego market. Every market is very micro because of pricing, demand, and different things like that. Basically, but it's looking at a $40,000 cheaper on average. That's what inflation is going to affect the home buyers across the nation, and definitely here in California. So let's go into recession number 9. The ninth indicator of 12 indicators is recession. Okay, and we want to talk about that because a lot of people have got tremendous fear of recession. Now, we briefly mentioned earlier about the Great Recession we had in 2008, 2009, and those years. And it wasn't a Great Depression like we had in 1929, 1930, when the world went through a Great Depression. Thank heavens. And we saved us going through a Great Depression and also a Great Recession. But so there are, fears of recession, and we'll talk about that. So this is the Harris poll, right? We found that 84% of Americans plan to cut back spending as a result of price spikes. 84%. Now, you're probably doing that right now in your home, your family, your business. If you're running a business, you're looking at cutting, expenses. Maybe an extra cell phone that you weren't using, or extra subscriptions that you've got. You're going to be cutting different those things. 84% of Americans are doing that. More than 7 out of 10 report feeling the effects of the inflation, the most in gas prices, and secondly, groceries. Okay, gas prices have been one of the biggest things, but groceries as well. We've seen groceries increase tremendously. So rents are climbing rapidly. Remember one of the questions, one of the 7 questions, the shift, questions that people have right now. Kurt, what's going to happen with my rent? My rent keeps on going up, and people say, well, should I even buy right now? Is this a good time to buy? Well, is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to rent? That's the question, right? That's the question, because there's a lot of benefits of even buying now in this kind of market. But rents are climbing significantly. San Diego, 19-20%, which is a lot higher than inflation. Okay, a lot higher than inflation. So if you just think of staying renting for the next few years, whatever, or I've known people selling the home and just going to rent for the next 20 years, that may not be the smartest thing. So if you want to chat to me about that, please come and chat to me about that. So home ownership is definitely an edge against inflation. Definitely an edge against inflation. If you look at the history of the last 40, 50 years, and this Keeping Current Matters is another great organization, and I follow them for years, and they keep on giving out great information. And if you look at home price appreciation versus consumer price increases over the last few decades, from the 1970s, you can see put your money in home ownership because it will look after you in the long run. Number 10, wages, jobs and wages. Now, this is a very interesting topic right now because people are feeling that their jobs and their wages are not increasing as much as inflation, but we have seen some great things. So let's first look at, in San Diego County, nearly 70,000 jobs have been created in the last year. We're talking about San Diego County. I'm not talking about LA or Southern California. I'm just talking about San Diego County. 70,000 jobs have been created in this last year. So the job market is still incredibly healthy in San Diego. And when job markets are really healthy, that gives more people the opportunity to buy homes and to pay their mortgage. So if the job market decreases significantly and there aren't jobs, that's when you have really, really problems about this. So jobless, rate is lower than before the pandemic in San Diego right now. So the market, there's a graph, great graph to look at. It really shows where we are right now. So the job market is extremely healthy, and that's more important than most people realize. If there aren't any jobs, that's where the whole, there's less money floating around, less money moving. A lot of people don't understand that every time a home sells in San Diego, between $90,000 and $120,000 is pumped into the local economy. Let me say that again. Every time a home sells in San Diego, between $90,000 and $120,000 per home sold, gets pumped into the local economy. So it's important for us to have a good job market, and important for us to sell homes and buy homes, because every time you buy a home or you sell a home, I understand between 90,000 and 120,000 is pumped in the local economy, which provides other jobs. So the circulation increases. The more people getting money, getting income, the more people spend, the stronger the economy is. Okay, Senegal's jobless rate drops. Okay, drops. And this is phenomenal. If you look at from July 2020, where we were, down about 16, and now we're 2.7%. Less people are filing for unemployment right now. Very, very healthy for San Diego. You can interpret that data in a few different ways, but for our discussion, that's very healthy for people buying homes. And why? Because we want people to buy homes and sell homes, because so much money is pumped in the local economy every single time. Kurt Francis from your Francis team, 858-229-9180. If you want to chat about it and talk about it, I would love to talk to you more about that. Have a great day, everybody.